So today, we're putting cable news networks on notice. Specifically, we're asking the 3 cable news networks, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, to take the hate and vigilante groups off the air and to clean up the rhetoric of their own commentators or take them out of their chairs. Second, we're putting candidates of all parties on notice to renounce hate speech and sever their ties to vigilante groups. Specifically, we're asking Governor Mike Huckabee to renounce the support and his relationship with Jim Gilchrist. Third, we're launching a campaign today called A Wave of Hope. This campaign will educate Americans about the rise of hate speech against Latinos and the corresponding rise of hate crimes and violence we are experiencing. It includes an anti-hate website entitled We Can Stop the Hate, ongoing collaboration with other minority groups to confront hate speech, work with media networks and candidates to recognize and eliminate hate speech altogether, asking candidates to sign a pledge to elevate the debate and avoid hate speech, and asking all media to clean up hate mail from its web postings. To Latinos, these are not idle concerns. The Department of Justice reports that hate crimes against Latinos are up in the last 2 years nationwide by 23% and have doubled in California. This is no coincidence. Words have impact, and we're seeing that direct impact today. The Southern Poverty Law Center and Anti-Defamation League had documented dozens of physical assaults on Latinos, most of whom are U.S. citizens, by people spouting anti-immigrant rhetoric. You know, last May, I spoke at one of the pro-immigration rallies in Washington, D.C. That day, Minuteman member Tyler Froatz was arrested for assaulting an organizer. He was carrying a taser stun gun, pepper spray, and he had a rifle, ammunition, and maps in his car. A search of his apartment turned up more than 15 guns, a Molotov cocktail, a hand grenade, and more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition and other weapons. A couple of days later, one of our own affiliates in the Washington suburbs was set on fire in an act that investigators determined was arson. To our Hispanic community, these are not abstract issues associated with an immigration policy debate. It's personal, it's intolerable, and it has to end. You know, we are very grateful to have allies in this endeavor. The Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Anti-Defamation League, Media Matters, and MALDEF, who have helped immeasurably with the development of this initiative. On our website, www.wecanstopthehate.org, there will be a series of videos to help put this current generation of hate speech into context. I'd like to show you one of them made in conjunction with the Anti-Defamation League on the code words of hate. And I'd like to direct your attention to this screen.
The Anti-Defamation League has been documenting for decades how hate groups have used conflict over immigration to advance their white supremacy, their hate, their stereotypes. And now we're concerned that the exact same rhetoric is moving from the hate sites to the nightly news, coming out of the mouths of some politicians, opinion elites, and even, we're afraid, around the dinner table.
You've got a wholesale invasion, the greatest invasion in human history, coming across your southern border, changing the composition.
We've seen hate speech and code words used against immigrants and Latinos in a number of ways, each one designed to spark fear in the hearts of people, to paint them as a threat to our values and to our communities. And there are 4 main themes we see. The first is the sense that immigrants are an army of invaders. They're coming here to attack our way of life, to subvert our values. And it puts the suggestion in people's minds that they are a threat and something communities should rise up against.
You say that the greatest invasion in history, the third world, et cetera, talking about the invasion at our borders, and I agree with you.
We are in a war with Mexico right now. They're the only ones fighting it, of course.
It wasn't just a dozen folks who are ensconced in the ivory tower who believe that the Southwest is Aztlan and it belongs to them.
We're looking at 10% more people here in 10 years than we have now, all foreign nationals.
I think it is almost inevitable. If we do not put a fence on that border,
I agree with
you're going to have 100 million Hispanics in the country, most of them new immigrants from Mexico, which believes that belongs to them.
The second theme is one of dehumanization. Immigrants are talked about as swarms, hordes, and even worse. And when you begin to teach good people and children in schools to think of a group of their neighbors as animal-like, less than human, you train them to think of their neighbors as less deserving of rights and maybe even targets of hate and worse.
If they're an illegal alien, they're not an American and they're not decent.
And then this big, vast wave of low-skilled, poorly educated, people illiterate in any language, no high school degree coming into the country.
What jobs do the women and the children do that we have to have them here, other than the children's job is to dumb down the American children and overpopulate our schools?
But you call them immigrants, and I wish you would stop insulting immigrants by comparing them to illegal aliens. It's very rude.
The next theme is the sense that immigrants bring crime and disease. You can see false accusations, inaccurate statistics and science talking about a disproportionate problem of malaria, other kinds of disease that are coming into our country through the immigrants that come here. And then you instill in good people a sense of threat to their basic well-being, the public safety. Now immigrants are a public health risk.
The number of illegal immigrants in our prisons was increasing and the financial burden rising. 3 of our reports covered rape or sexual predators in the context of illegal immigration in this country.
Now they're importing drugs and illegal aliens.
7,000 cases, active cases of leprosy.
The number of cases of leprosy in this country. One of the reasons we screen people coming into this country is to deal with communicable diseases like leprosy, disease or other illnesses, and illegal aliens.
And the fourth theme we're seeing is a conspiracy theory, and that is that Mexican immigrants come to the United States to reconquer the Southwest and take back land that had once belonged to Mexico.
There has been much discussion about the so-called Reconquista, which is the retaking of old Mexico territories, which are now part of the United States, by pure birth rate.
But I'll tell you this, I do believe we're going to lose the American Southwest.
We already have a problem where forces trained by the U.S. military, such as Los Zetas, which controls the border more than the Border Patrol, were trained by the American military at Fort Benning, South Carolina.
The culture that they live in and the place they live in is supposed to assimilate to them as opposed to the other way around. You are going to end up with a balkanized country, and that's what we have.
But as far as I'm concerned...
You know what, Pat? We are in such denial.
You think that training these people with arms and demolitions is a good idea? You got 60% of the people in Mexico that feel that the United States shouldn't even control the Southwest United States, and you're going to train them in arms and explosives? Bet the French are glad they didn't do that before the illegal aliens started burning half the country over the last 2 years.
So, man, if you look at the Mexican consulates that are active political lobbyists who've entrenched themselves in the American mainstream and who have succeeded in blurring the lines between illegal and legal immigration, yes, there's a plan.
I think that there's a huge number of folks contiguous to Mexico. Our ancestors came across the seas, and look, they've got their own language, their own culture. They don't want to be Americans.